As the board had identified, there's always so much you can talk about our digital learning environment and technology, but we realized that tech overload in all of our lives is something that we need to learn how to manage a little bit better. And upon that decision, about 4 days later, Common Sense Media came out with a study that they have done with Northwestern University on the amount of screen time that parents of tweens and teens log in. I'm not going to steal the show. I'll let our speakers move towards that, but I would like to introduce them. We do have Liana Slater, who's the director of the New York office from Common Sense Media. Liana facilitated the 2016 launch of the Common Sense Media Supporter School Program for the New York City Independent Schools. This is an initiative developed to better support parents, kids, and educators to help kids thrive in a world of media and leverage technology for learning. Liana leads the parent talks for the school program and speaks regularly to parents of kids in grades K through 12 in New York City. Liana started her career with educational publisher John Wiley & Sons over 20 years ago and moved to Silicon Valley in 2000 to focus on new media and technology. She joined Google in 2003, and prior to joining Common Sense Media in 2014, she held a variety of nonprofit leadership roles. Her firsthand experience with kids and technology comes from her role as the mother of 2 boys and the aunt to a toddler and 3 teenagers. We'd like to thank Liana. And I'd also like to, at this time, although she will be our second speaker, introduce Marcella Moran. Marcella Moran is a licensed psychotherapist who works with families to develop positive strategies for students who are disorganized. She is the co-author of Organizing the Disorganized Child, who wrote it along with renowned child neurologist Dr. Martin Kutcher. She previously served as coordinator for counseling and psychological services and for the Office of Disability Services at Fordham University. Marcella is president of the Kid Organizer, where she and her team offer a unique assessment of students' learning styles and identify organizational styles that prove to be successful strategies for developing personalized organizational systems for students of all ages, including through college. Marcella has given numerous workshops and seminars in the United States on various topics such as organizing the disorganized child, time management, study skills, and organizing the college-bound student, and has been featured in many national and international publications. We are honored to have both of these experts here today to offer insight to managing screen time. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liana. Okay.
You turned it off?
We have it all queued up. Here we go.
I can start talking anyhow. So thank you so much for having me here today. Yes, I represent Common Sense Media, and I'm here to talk about supporting our kids in a 24/7 digital world. So first, how many of you have heard of Common Sense Media before today? Okay, so about half of you. So just to clarify, we are a nonprofit organization and we're mission driven. As mentioned, we're focused on helping kids thrive in the world of media and technology. And with that goal, we can go to the next slide. We do 3 main things. So we rate, we educate, and we advocate, and we're really best known for our ratings and reviews across all media and our website. And then we also have a digital citizenship curriculum for students, and then we also are very active in advocacy for children's privacy and education. And, excuse me, sorry, I just got over a cold. So our biggest focus, and what we think our nation's biggest challenge is really with raising kids, is that on average, kids are spending more time with digital media devices than any other activity in their lives. So we have some statistics from our research, which I'll dig into a little bit deeper. But my job is really to talk to parents like you to provide you with the information that you need to make decisions that make sense for your families and navigating parenting in this 24/7 digital world. So as mentioned, I have my own children and I'm very involved with my nieces and nephew who are teenagers, and so I'm really, really passionate about this topic of helping all kids thrive in a world of media and technology, but also avoiding the potential pitfalls. So we can go to the next slide. And I think, especially parents of teens, are very well aware of what your fears are and the potential pitfalls there. So I don't want to go into that very deeply. And in some of our research, parents' main concerns were too much time online, oversharing, being exposed to inappropriate content, violence and sexuality, and even fake news that has been a hot topic recently. And there are many other potential consequences of a lot of time online. However, we can go to the next slide. My goal is really to help keep your kids safe and supported. So I developed this talk really with the goal to help build awareness in parents of the digital landscape, and also to equip you with tools, as mentioned, that you need in order to be informed, but also to engage with and better communicate with your kids. So I'm going to be referencing some of our research from Common Sense Media, and I'm also going to be sharing some insights from a series of focus groups that we've held with kids and parents of middle and high school to get a better sense of the digital landscape and just from how children are dealing with that as well as parents. So I am going to suggest some tips, specific tips throughout, and then if you do want to sign up for our newsletter, there's a clipboard right there. If you wouldn't mind grabbing it, we'll send out our specific tips and through Patty as well. And I'll take questions at the end with Marcella. So if you go to the next slide. So kind of touched on this. What do we mean when we say a 24/7 digital world? So some of our recent research, this is actually from our kids census. Our census that came out last year focused on kids 8 to 18 media use. And that showed us that kids are using, or teens are using, an average of 9 hours of media entertainment per day. This is on average. This is for entertainment. This is not including use for school or homework. And we also confirmed that multitasking is the new normal. So this is when kids are watching TV, they're listening to music, they're texting at the same time, and listening to music is often through a digital platform, for Spotify or Pandora. And about 2/3 of teens in that survey said that they don't think that multitasking affects their work. And we'll talk more about that later. And the next slide shows us that, interestingly, teens' most enjoyable activities are listening to music and watching TV. And over 1/3 of teens said that they enjoy social media a lot, but only 10% said that it's their favorite activity. And this includes Instagram, Snapchat, other ways of connecting with others. So that said, social media use is really, really big for kids 13 and up, and it's really an integral part of most kids' lives. There are statistics that show that the average kids are online, well, about 2/3 of all kids have a social media account, and 24% of kids said that they're online constantly throughout the day. And a lot of kids are watching what other kids are doing, so that's termed lurking. So they're online watching what others are doing. So it's not our imagination. Kids are spending a huge amount of time online, and they're consuming media, and access to internet has just been upheld by the widespread use of digital and mobile technology. So we're looking for answers around how to parent our digital natives. And we believe that new skills are required that are different from our own adolescence to help kids manage a digital life. So we go to the next slide. So we'll talk about kids' motivation and interest in various apps and what kids are using today, but I really wanted to share this sentiment from one of our focus groups. This is from an 11th grade boy, actually. And he just said, adults don't get it. They think I'm addicted to technology, but I'm not. I'm addicted to my friends. And I think I really just thought that this was interesting, and we can talk about technology addiction later on, but this just really offers a crack in the door to help parents better understand our kids and teens. And developmental science shows that kids today aren't so different from that pre-digital world, but they're really operating in a different context, and the rules of conduct have changed. But all kids really want that connection to their friends. So if we go to the next slide, I do want to assure you that there are many positive aspects of social media and technology use. And there is research that shows that the internet can make kids happier, smarter, kinder, and that connection and positive interaction is really good. And kids can use social media to be creative, and participate in one's community. And this is aside from educational technology, so really focusing on all of this time that kids are spending outside of that. And the next slide just shows us that games have benefits too. So according to the American Psychological Association, gaming can improve learning, health, and social skills. However, there are potential pitfalls, and media has a huge impact on our kids. And we say that media really is really raising our kids right now, and this isn't just in TV and movies, but it's also in the social media that kids are creating as well as watching and participating in. And so my main point is that parents really still need to be involved, even throughout the teen years, and content really matters. And what your kids consume really has a big impact on them. So we can go to the next slide. So again, we'll touch on what kids are using today, but I really just wanted to shift gears for a moment and just frame our conversation on media and technology in terms of developmental trends. And this might just help us better understand our kids' motivations and digital lives. So as you might recall from your own adolescence, teens are really focused on three main things: that connection, identity, and peer validation. So friends have a really special place in adolescents' lives, as well as their peers, and our teens are developing their own identities. And again, it includes social media and their peers, as well as kind of what we think of as traditional media influencing that. And teens are seeking peer validation. So again, nothing new, total normal part of the developmental period that predates technology, but now kids have this access for connection and feedback almost 24/7. It can be in their pockets all the time. And that can really cause some problems. So the current research on adolescents tells us also that the adolescent brain is particularly sensitive to no rewards, or that feeling of instant gratification. So that the adolescent brain is really heightened because of increased dopamine activity in the teen's brain. And good experiences feel especially rewarding to teens. And the research states that adolescence starts at age 11 and goes through the early 20s. So now when teens are rewarding for seeking out information or posting self-disclosure online, they really are getting that dopamine spurt. They're looking for the likes, they're looking for the affirmation, and more likes means more dopamine to the brain's reward system. So we can go to the next slide. So we pretty much know that many social media platforms include a like feature, a thumbs up or a heart icon. And you also get this through gaming. You're just that feedback, that affirmation, especially multiplayer games and online games. And this feature is one of the reasons that social media is so engaging. And likes are highly rewarding, so it provides kids with that instant gratification, that dopamine spurt. And you hear about the hundreds club for teens, that teens are really focused on reaching 100 likes. So in addition to kind of that engagement and that, checking in, it's just very, very stressful. It can create a lot of stress. But the current research also tells us that teens' brains are really malleable. And we probably, all of you already know this, the brain's control center that helps with decision-making, planning, and impulse control is still developing. So we know teens are very, very impulsive. But the research also noted that this doesn't mean that adolescents don't have the capacity to check themselves. They do, but they just need constant reminders. And I think this is hard to even remind yourself with teens, or I'm sure many parents feel like they are checking in, or they feel like they're nagging. But I'm just going to talk about tips to engage with your kids to help support them and give them these kind of reminders that they really need. And to help kids think critically and ask for help if needed. And that is really a developed skill. So we can go to the next slide. Let's just take a very quick look at what kids are using today. It's really hard to think that the smartphone came out in 2007. I don't know what we would do without it right now, and feeling attached to our mobile devices is really our new normal. And we know that Instagram and Snapchat are hugely popular among teens, and as is messaging, and gaming is hugely popular too. Facebook, not as popular, but they're with younger teens. Some older teens I hear are still using it for scheduling and specific groups and stuff, and Facebook is trying to keep up. The Facebook Live is really intriguing for a lot of teens. And then obviously, gaming is a huge part of kids' lives too. And our recent research confirms the gender gap, which we assume already probably for online gaming behavior, that girls are really dominating social media and boys are more engaged in gaming. But girls are gaming. We can go to the next slide. So we know that apps are changing all the time, though, and that kids are diversifying their use. 71% of kids use more than one social media platform, and this doesn't really mean that they're using it as their main platforms, or multiple platforms as their main platforms, but they're watching what other people are doing, as mentioned. So checking things out, testing them out, and things might become popular and then completely fall aside. So it's just important to kind of just be aware of what's out there. So we can go to the next slide. So we don't have time to go into a tutorial on all the main apps, and you're probably already well aware of what is most popular. How many people here actually use Instagram yourselves? Or your kids use it? Okay, so a lot. So you're pretty much aware of Instagram, really popular. Now I actually think it's one of the more innocuous apps, and it can be really fun for kids. And, I won't go into this too much, but one thing I think is really interesting is Instagram Stories, which is a feature that shows kind of all your moments of your day. So again, kids are checking in and watching what other people are doing, and it's just very, very engaging. And then also Finstagram, or Finstas. Yes. So when kids have a second Finsta account, very, very popular. So ask your kids, how many Instagram accounts do you have? It's not always so sneaky, but it's very common for kids to have another account for a smaller group or a specific group of people. So we can move on. So again, messaging. Messaging apps are really, really popular among kids, and it's just really important to familiarize yourselves with what your kids are using, or just what else is out there, what they might use, because they're really quite different from kind of the general iMessage that comes with our iPhone or Android, and they have exciting features, like you can share photos and videos, such as with Snapchat. So we can go to the next slide. Now, how many of you here use Snapchat? Not that many. And I've tried to play around a lot with Snapchat. I think it's particularly mystifying to adults and to parents. So I think it's just important to just highlight what it's about. It's an ephemeral messaging app, meaning that you can send a message that disappears in 1 to 10 seconds. But it might never disappear because kids know how to take a quick picture of it without notifying the sender. And a lot of kids already know this, but they clearly need to be reminded of that all the time, to only share pictures that they'd be okay with a permanent version of, or shared with many people. And my niece tells me this, it's just addictive. She loves Snapchat. It opens up in live camera mode. You're ready to go. You can communicate. You really have a lot of control. You can communicate with one person rather than a whole group. So it's just fun. And they invented the stories, the Snapchat stories, before Instagram did, which is that montage of a 24-hour period of what kids are doing and what your friends can see. So very, very engaging, watching what other people are doing, and I just think, yeah, it's an interesting feature to talk to your kids about. And one of my nieces, I remember, was talking about her story a couple of years ago when I started giving these talks. Even before Snapchat Stories was launched, she was like, you have to be really careful about what you post in your story. And I was like, stories? And it was just her way of talking about it, and now it's a common term, Snapchat Stories, Instagram kind of stories. So we can go to the next slide. I can't leave Snapchat just yet. So Snapchat is really where a lot of teens are living today. So I just think it's really important just to know what they're exposed to. So Snapchat Discover. So how they present themselves is that it allows kids to stumble upon channels from top publishers who curate content daily. And you can also watch live stories from an event, or you can check out local campus stories. So campus stories is run by a GPS, so it's a 2-mile radius. So it might not be a college campus, but it was developed for the college campus. And kids can access that. And Snapchat promises kids you will never get bored. And kids will not ever get bored. It's just too engaging. And this can create overuse and obsessive behaviors. So just important to talk to kids about this. And then also, just look at what kids are exposed to. So they have a variety of publishers, a lot of different publishers that post on Snapchat Discover. MTV, Vice, BuzzFeed, even the New York Times and National Geographic. But I don't think the kids are going to the New York Times for their news, but they might be going to MTV. And so you can't really see this up here, but this is the headline there is where is Kim Kardashian's underwear? So this is just, you go right in, these are the top headlines of the day. And that was probably a couple of weeks ago. So it's just knowing what your kids might be exposed to. Yeah, so we'll go more into how to talk to kids about that. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm just briefly going to touch on kind of other types of apps that are out there, just to know about. So this is just, first of all, let's just think about anonymity, and that the internet is really, obviously we know it allows for anonymity. And in the focus groups we heard over and over again how anonymity is a feature that can make certain platforms destructive. It can allow people to be mean and hostile, and also allow for oversharing. And just know that that disinhibition effect is really, really powerful. And teens are sometimes attracted to anonymous apps because they're informative and funny, but they can also be destructive. So essentially, the person receiving a message is identifiable, but the sender stays anonymous. So I hear less and less about Ask FM, and we go to the next slide. I hear more about these question and answer type apps that are more like a bulletin board or ratings apps. And so this is like an anonymous bulletin board and includes street chat, Yik Yak, which you'll hear more about in New York City, and after school. So again, kids might just test these out, but they're really not made for kids. And just ask your kids if they've heard of these, if they're using them, and just really that they're not meant for kids. It's like we're walking up to a virtual bathroom wall and posting anything, but it can spread really, really quickly, and that anonymity, that veil of anonymity can really create some hostile situations. We go to the next slide. So just briefly, one other is just to know about live streaming apps. So I think this surprises some parents of their existence. And we hear more and more about them. I think, obviously over the election we heard about it, and I mentioned Facebook Live. But again, you can just watch videos of people in inappropriate situations, and just, so just be aware of that they're out there, I guess, essentially. We don't have to go too much into those. So we can go to the next. So I know this is a lot of information, and I'm just kind of breezing through some of the details that I would go into further with parents of younger kids, but I just want to emphasize that really want to focus on tips and keeping your kids safe and supported. And just, again, just being informed and you're being here is really kind of an important step. So we can go to the next page. So kids really need support if they're going to be participating in the digital world, and they are. So we really emphasize that parents need to be involved. And that media should really be a shared experience. And I know that's harder beyond the age of 13, 14, but again, really, you still do have some control in your kids' lives, and it's just important to find a way to be involved in a positive and supportive influence. So we really want to build trust and have that open line of communication with our children. So I think it's just, you want to have that kind of relationship where your kids know you're going to check in and be involved in some way. And many parents have questions about surveillance. We hear the spectrum that parents just want to back off, especially when teens are older. And then other parents still are trying to follow their kids on everything that they do, which we now know is impossible, especially with things like Snapchat that kids are using. But based on what we heard in the focus groups, and we can talk a little bit more about this with Marcella, what you suggest, but what we really heard that helped us to come up with some suggestions is to be transparent from the get-go. Which again, your kids are a little bit older now, so if that hasn't always been the case, you can set the new rules as of today, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how to do that. But also to model trust and avoid a power play. And whatever you decide to do, again, it's just tell your kids you want to keep them safe online. And if they scoff at that, just really ask them some critical questions. And I'm going to share some that we shared in a second. But a really interesting study states that 45% of kids said that they would change their online behavior if they knew their parents were watching. And this is a subset of 90% of kids who said that their parents trust their online behavior. So we just thought that was an interesting stat. Okay, so we can go to the next page. And then one other thing, just know also maybe if you are checking your kid's phone sometimes, what you don't see is also a really important part of the puzzle. So again, we really encourage asking your kids questions, asking them, kind of what they're experiencing. So that in addition to the fact that there are so many popular apps and the landscape's changing regularly, we just really thought that they're a framework kind of questions to ask your kids to help you engage can be really effective. So literally, we are saying, ask your kids, what are you using? Can you tell me a little bit about your favorite app right now? With whom do you mostly connect? How do you decide you're going to let follow you or who you want to follow? When do you use or check it? How do you decide what to post, share, or do on the site? And what kind of pictures do you like to share? And finally, you can ask, how do you normally feel after you use it? And we heard from teens that they are open to these questions, not all at once. They need to be in, one at a time, kind of in a relaxed environment, or kind of an appropriate time specific to a situation. But again, and just opening up that line of communication, this can be helpful. And we also heard to hold off on the judgments. Obviously, kids don't want to be judged, but it's really hard not to react and share opinions. Or if you feel that that relationship, isn't what you have with your own child, have them talk to a trusted adult. Try to find somebody or a family member that you can tell them they can always go talk to if they do have specific questions. And then while we're talking about safety, we can go to the next page. So we are really strong advocates of a family media agreement. And we suggest the use of this at home. Many schools have a media agreement, but I think kids forget that right after they sign it for the most part. And I think it's just really important to have kind of rules and guidelines at home. So we'll be sending this out, or if you sign up to our kind of newsletter, you'll be getting a link to this as well, and you can kind of see it. We have it, it's grades K through 5, we have 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12. But we find this really, really helpful, and it offers stay safe and think first and kind of stay balanced sections. And this is an interesting way to organize it because it really kind of might help you talk to kids about setting boundaries and taking responsibility for their actions. And specify limits in screen time as well, but it really will get the conversation going. And again, well, I mentioned this before, we think it's really important to talk to your kids about your family values. I think a lot of parents assume that that will just kind of be absorbed by some kids, but I really think that to internalize family values, they need to be discussed, and this can be really, really tricky. And again, like always reminding kids to behave online as they would in public. And yeah, that learning that self-control and that internalization of family values is a learned skill. And then, go to the next slide. These are kind of the basics. So that it's just kind of all heard, but important to just, again, remind our kids. And I mentioned this before, the digital footprint, that whatever you do online, you're going to leave a digital trace. And so think about that with posting photos, as well as commenting. We can go to the next slide. And then keeping personal information private. So you think like, okay, teenagers, they should know this. It's an important part of schools are always telling kids not to share passwords. But there are studies out there that say 1/3 of kids have admitted that they regularly share their passwords with their best friend, their boyfriend, their girlfriend. It's just a normal part of kind of this developmental period of showing that trust. So it can be relatively common, and we just also important to bring it up with our kids sometimes and just tell them that impersonation can happen, in addition to just security, that it's just something that they shouldn't be doing is sharing their passwords. Or very common to let a friend use your device and then you don't sign out. So those types of reminders. And then some other very quick tips. Consider disabling location settings. So I think this is really hard for older teens, but just talking about, and then you probably also maybe provide your kids with a phone because you want to be able to track them on their phone. But again, just know like the geolocation feature in Instagram, it puts a pin on a map to show others exactly where you are. So just talk to your kids about sharing their location. They might not even think that when they're sending a photo, they're sharing their location, or posting something, they're sharing the location. So just something pretty easy. And know that it is almost impossible to use Snapchat, in my experience, without setting the location feature on. So all of these apps now, they're using geolocation. So it's tricky, but something to talk about. And then privacy settings. So it's really important to talk to your kids about the importance of using privacy settings. And most apps are defaulted to public. So this is Instagram, and it's very, very simple. It's either privacy, it's on private or not private. So very, very simple. And just really important to talk to your kids about just thoughtfully setting their privacy settings. So in Snapchat, it's defaulted to friends, so it's defaulted to private. But talk to your kids that the other setting is everyone, and that everyone doesn't mean all your friends, it means everyone in the whole world. So it's just, this app is just meant to relate to kids. So again, Snapchat should be set to friends only and not everyone, if you care about keeping your information kind of more private. Okay. And then, I think this is something that parents are really concerned about, is multitasking and distraction. And when kids have cell phones or devices or even doing their work online, they're very easily distracted, and that's just the scale of communication. They're getting a lot of texts and emails, and they have that fear of missing out, and then that pressure of having to respond to friends, and so that's a very real struggle for a lot of kids. So it goes back to like helping kids set the boundaries. And you can go, just go that. Okay. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so we have a few tips here, and I could leave this to Marcella to talk a little bit more about, just in the interest of time, or we can take some questions at the end. But what I really want to focus on here is modeling the behavior that you want to see in your kids. So we can go to the next slide, actually. So this is from our, and you can click it, I think, twice more. So this is from our most recent research that Patty mentioned. So this just came out where we did a follow-up to our census of kids' behavior age 18 for parents, media behavior. And we really the goal was really to figure out the relationship with parents and media and how it affects their children and all of that. And so in this recent survey, it told us that parents' media use averages out at 9.5 hours per day. And there's only, I think, 1 hour in there was for work time. So we just thought that was a really not too surprising stat, but something to think about. And if you go to the next slide, that said, 78% of parents believe that they're good media and technology role models. So just interesting thing to think about. And if you go to the next slide, so this is a survey that just kind of reminds us that kids are really watching at what parents are doing, and often they're modeling that behavior. But it's also affecting kids. So this was a survey that was done by ABG, and it just was done to see kind of the impact on the relationship that smartphones have. And it showed us that 54% of kids felt parents check their devices too often. So it's really important to pay attention to your kids, especially when they want to talk. And then more than a third of the kids said that their biggest grievance was that parents were distracted by devices during their conversations. And then I hear that from my own kids all the time. Even though we have challenges with managing their screen time, although I'm really strict, I definitely get a lot of feedback from them about when I'm using my screens, my devices, and it just reminds me to set limits for myself. One great suggestion I had from a colleague was to narrate what I'm doing on my phone. And so maybe I'm responding to my boss, I'm going to tell her I'm going to be back in an hour, and after I send this, we'll do X, Y, and Z. And it sounds so simple and kind of commonsensical, but it really, really works. And it's just also showing your kids that you're using your device as a tool, and that you have more control over it rather than it controlling you, if you do, which is really hard. Okay, and we can go to the next slide. So talking about modeling behavior and managing screen time, I think it's tricky because I think parents already feel a lot of guilt. And this has also been kind of supported from some research that's been done out there. And it's guilt over their own use, and it's also guilt over allowing screen time and allowing kids to use screen media kind of maybe more often than they would like to. So again, we don't have to go into this too deeply, just looking at the time, but I liked this kind of position. This is from Sonia Livingstone, who's based in the UK, who works with Common Sense sometimes, and it was just reminded parents to just look at the big picture. So, and just ask yourself, is my child physically healthy and sleeping enough? connecting socially with family and friends in any form, engaged with and achieving in school, pursuing interests and hobbies in any form, and having fun and learning in the use of digital media. So just another way to think about it. It may be a little bit more helpful for parents of younger kids who are really struggling kind of with early, setting rules and early screen time boundaries. But okay, and so we can go to the next slide. So we have a lot of resources to support your decision making, and so again, I just want to highlight what I mentioned before. We're really best known for our website and our ratings and reviews, and it's free and accessible to all. So, and we can go to the next slide. But we think that content really matters. So I know I talked a lot about social media, but also we rate movies. So this is actually just showing, how we put context into content and how we actually rate and review. And this is Hidden Figures, which I think should be just required viewing for all teenagers right now, or 10 plus. I saw it with my boys who are 10 and 12, and they loved it. They're really into science, so I had to put that in there. Anyhow, but it just shows. So, even when your kids are older, they might, want some engagement. It's also a good way to engage. Why are you checking common sense? But then you can really talk to them about what they might be seeing or something that they already did see. Another feature I love about Common Sense, it will give you, and I didn't highlight that here, but it's specific questions to engage with your kids about each media that we review. And if we go to the next slide, I think I showed, we also review games. So again, kids are very, very involved in gaming, and I won't go into that too much here, but I think it's just really important to know what games your kids are playing, ask the right questions. I know it's like almost impossible to watch it and say that. I don't enjoy sitting down and playing a game with my kids, and they actually would want me to right now, but I'm sure when kids get older, they don't want that. But just engaging with your kids, watching them, asking them, can I watch what you're doing? Just something that's really important too. So I didn't talk too much about violence, but there's a lot of violence and inappropriate content in games, and it's just important to be aware of that. And if you let your kids use violent games, talk to them about it. Have them think critically about what they're doing and what they're seeing, and that's just really, really important. And try not to do it in a, in a stressed out way or overreact in any way, but just ask them, what do they think? Why are you using Grand Theft Auto? What do you think about the images that you see? Just really, really important. So you can go to the next slide. Oh, and then we have a digital glossary, so I can send in a link to that. So if there's anything that pops up that you're like, wow, I haven't heard about that, commonsense.org does have a digital glossary. And then, so I'm going to leave it there, and we'll take questions after we hear from Marcella, but thank you for listening. Thank you.
Hello. I am going to go through some of my screens sort of quickly because Liana touched on a lot of information, a lot of great information. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how I'm connected with this. I work with a lot of kids who have attention issues. Screens are hard, really hard to manage. I deal with this every day. I work with kids who are in elementary school up to college. And one of the things I always say to everybody and at every lecture, make sure that your kids have some sort of organizing system, some sort of strategies that will help them manage their screens before they go to college. Because at college, they're on their own. And it really can be disastrous for some. So, so this is just really quick data. Liana spoke about the first two. I thought that the last one was pretty interesting, that 71% of the children have some sort of screen in their room. And you know why? Because of the adults want to watch some TV or get on some screen. I thought that was a really interesting fact there. So I think we're all somewhat guilty of that. You know, we went out some of our downtime. We like screens too. They're fun, right? They are, they're fun. Kids mimic parents. So if you're sitting there with your kids and you hear ding, oh, let me see who's messaging me. Another ding, oh, my email, right? So if you're checking your phone in front of them, why can't they? I love the first, oh, sorry. The first fact there, that 1 out of 3 adults look at their mobile devices before they get out of bed in the morning. Most of us charge our phones right by our beds. And usually, especially our younger kids, will be charging their phones in our room too. So I think that's pretty interesting. Also, TV in the background. I am guilty of this. I always like to have something playing in the background just because I like noise, like a white noise. But what message does it send to our kids when we have some sort of screen that's on all the time? I like this one. You know, parents are a little bit confused as to, I'm a parent too, how do we approach this new media? You know, with all these different apps, all these different screens. Some of us are really proud of our kids. Wow, you know, Johnny's only 5, and he can just surf that internet, or he can play this game. It's unbelievable. God, he's a genius, right? Then there's some, I don't know, it's like a bottomless pit. I don't, my kids are on it 24/7. It's just so bad. You know, we're the first generation of parents who really have to deal with this. And as much as there's research out there, it's new research. So, you know, I find that we're just grasping to anything. Just give us some data. Tell me what I should do because I really don't know how to handle this. This is a really interesting thing for us to really focus on and really think about this. Involuntary attention is something that we really don't have to focus on to look at, like something that we like, something we're fiddling with, something like a movie, a TV show. We're not really putting much thought into it. Voluntary attention is doing something we really don't like to do. Maybe homework, doing a project. Something that we might find boring that we have to really assert some attention. So, when you go from watching a movie to having to do your homework, that shift is really difficult. It's really difficult for kids to go from watching a video, playing some sort of game, right, to going to do their homework. That's tough. And I'm sure, you know, we've all faced that with our kids. Going from voluntary, which is doing the homework, to then doing something that's an involuntary attention is much easier. I'm going to talk a lot about shifting, because shifting is one of those executive functions that doesn't really fully develop until we're out of college. I always say it's God's way of laughing at us. Those executive functions we need. We need to organize. We learn hindsight, foresight, planning, the concept of time. Everybody I work with has such a poor concept of time. So it's something that we're always working on. Transitioning, shifting, all difficult. And if your child has any sort of executive functioning issues, or challenges I should say, or any ADHD, this is even harder. So it's really important to find the balance. You know, using timers, I like something that's an analog, like a clock. I don't like the digital timers because kids really can't see time, right? Anyone here have a time timer? It's great. A time timer is sort of looks like an analog clock, and I don't have one today with me, but you turn, it has 60 minutes on it, and as you turn the knob, the shade is red, and as the time goes, the shade diminishes, and it's wonderful. I use this with teenagers to learn what time is. It's a great way to even manage your time. Some of the other self-control and antisocial are some apps that I recommend to parents, to teenagers. You can shut off certain social media for a certain amount of time. What I do suggest is that you do it on their laptop and not them, until they're able to really be more responsible and manage their time well, because so many kids will go in and the parents say, okay, well, you set this up. You set it up because you know it a lot better than I do. And then maybe, oh, I don't know, let's say 10, 15 minutes into it, oh, forget this. I want to go and check my Instagram. I want to go back and watch my movie. So if you do it, you can set the passwords. Disney Circle and Get Screen are other great apps that parents use so they can regulate the screen time for the kids, and they can do it from their cell phone. So I love that. They don't have to be home. Break time. So remember I said that switching was a little bit hard? It's harder, as I said before, to switch from the video games to the homework. I am a big promoter. When you are taking a break, when your kids are taking a break, they have to move. They have to get up and move. Some of my older teens that I work with are, so attached to their phone, and they're saying, well, I have to, if I'm not looking at my phone during my homework, I have to check it up. I have to check it on my break. Okay. So I say get up, go out to the kitchen, go outside, and check your phone. If you stay at the desk, if you're working at the desk, okay, this is our desk. I'm working for a half hour, and then I take a break. And now I'm looking at my phone, or I'm looking at whatever it is, whatever screen. My break is up, I put it down, and I go back to work. Now I go back, I'm into work about 15 minutes, and you know what? I feel like I haven't taken a break, right? You know why? Because I'm still sitting at the same desk. My brain thinks I've still been working, right? Then it's harder for me to keep on task, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I haven't taken a break. So get up and move. The talk. So when you talk to your kids about setting limits, be specific. Be specific. Don't have anything gray. Just really be specific. I like this, it's keeping it positive. And this is the word I love. When. Yes, you can watch Netflix when you have completed your homework. Sometimes it's just rephrasing it. And if you keep a little bit more positive about it, the kids will listen. I think it's really important to help them develop those voluntary controls. And this takes some time. And also if your kids have some sort of attention issues before, this is going to even take a little bit longer. You want to teach them responsibility, to slow down, to be mindful. That's a lot. I try to work with a lot of mindfulness. Kids, when they start to feel, you know what, we can go to the next one. When they start to feel, say, stress, when they have to start setting those limits. When you talk to them about the plan and say, this is what we're going to do. Or times when you've told them, you need to get off the screen. That's it. You need to do your homework. What happens? Some of the kids, they explode, right? Stress causes a dopamine release that sometimes will result in, I put the chatter, I love that one, irrational chatter. You know what I'm talking about, right? When they go off. I like to call it the zone. When they're in the zone, walk away. Walk away, save yourself, just walk away. You're not talking to anybody in the zone. When they start, before they get in the zone, one of the things I try to work with the kids on is to feel it in their body. So many kids I work with have maybe not sensory issues, but they can feel that and be mindful of when they start to feel that stress. Walk away and come back and revisit it. Talk about it at a calm time, and talk about it when you have the tone that's really calm. Try to smile, because when you smile, you sound happier, believe it or not. But kids will pick up on the tone. If you're grinding your teeth and you're talking to them, they, right away, you're mad. I'm not mad. You're really holding it in. They can trust me, they pick it up and they're seeing it. Okay. I think it's really important we can go, sorry. Once again, discuss in advance what the rules of the screens are. Anytime you're going to talk to your child, do it in a place and a time when you know that they're going to be calm. Not right before they get on the screens, not right before they're going to do their homework. Maybe on like I don't know, like a Saturday, or when you're driving, you know, those great conversations when no one's looking at each other and everyone's looking straight. There's a lot, even if they're sitting in the back seat. So there's a lot that goes on in the car, a lot of great conversations in the car. But you want them to really be calm, and you want yourself to be calm too. Okay. Strengths and weaknesses. It's really important before you lay down the groundwork of the rules to know your child's strengths and weaknesses. If your child, listen, there are definitely kids out there who can transition and shift really easily. So, you know, from screens to what they have to do. God love them. That's great. So their rules don't have to be so strict, because they're able to manage themselves. They're being responsible and they're not being impulsive. Some kids have some weaknesses. Know the weaknesses. Know your child. Ask another adult in the house if you have a sitter, if you have a grandparent, the other parent. Ask them what do they see? Because, you know, we're not with our kids 24/7. It's really important to know. Okay. Don't expect a lot. Don't. You're going to get disappointed. You cannot just show your child something to do just once and say, God bless, go ahead. You got it. They don't. You have to supervise your kids. They're not going to get it 100% the first time. They're just not. They're just not. Hopefully they get it maybe 3 times out of the 5 days of doing homework. Maybe they get it twice. Keep it positive. Praise them for those 2 times that they were able to follow the rules. You have to really help your child manage the self-control. And if anything, remember this, the dopamine issue. Remember it. It's not you, it's it's what's going on with them. It's stress and they're in the zone. Okay. So talking about a plan before, I always like to work for about 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break. Get up, walk outside. Actually, if they can, shoot some hoops, go running around. If you have a trampoline, do something that's active. Because what that does is releases some of the same chemicals that mimic a lot of the ADD meds in your brain that have the effect on your brain. Those chemicals are released in your brain, which help kids focus more. I have a lot of athletes that I work with, and they'll always say that after practice and after games, they can focus. They're tired, but they can focus and they can do their work. So there's something definitely to that. Sometimes, kids, especially as they get older and they're open, well, not open, but they're more involved in other apps, as Leanna mentioned. They don't want to part with their phone, and they're not giving it to their parents either, So what I say is turn it off, turn the notifications off, put it in the closet, because they cannot turn it off and put it here. It's buzzing, it's blinking. When we see moving, we see flashing, our eyes go to it. So they need to get it out of sight. Put it under the pillow if they're in their bedroom. Get it out of sight. Or, what some people do is have, some families have like a basket. I have a basket in my office that says cell phone. Because I have some kids that I work with that really have a hard time parting with it. They put their cell phones in the basket. So everybody has to do that. The family meeting, be calm. You must be calm. Be fair. Know your child. Fair isn't always equal. Fair is not always equal. So you may have one child who has a strength, that we talked about before, that can really shift easily. Her and his rules are going to be a little bit different, right? That's fair. It's not equal. And most of all, do not have this discussion at bedtime. Not at all. So I think we touched on everything. And I guess if you have any questions.
About 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Somebody have a question? The live streaming sites, what are the legalities around that? Like, what sort of expectation for privacy can and should the kids have?
Okay, so. I'm not sure. Oh, yes. Expectations for privacy should be minimal. Common sense, actually, that's what we do a lot of advocacy work for privacy for kids. And it's all taken care of. It's illegal supposedly for children to be using social media under the age of 13 because their privacy is protected. The kids 13 plus, in my understanding, there aren't really any protections there. And you kind of sign away your rights when you sign up for an account on Facebook. Facebook says you can flag inappropriate content, but it's already out there. That's the concern about the live streaming. So yeah, I would just be very aware and keep kids away from it if you can, but or check in on what they.
Well, it's just a bystander. They're just in a room where somebody else is streaming it.
Exactly. It's tricky. Yeah, I do not like them. I do not like the live streaming. Yeah.
I know it's a really personal question, but I'm just curious. If you don't allow a certain Snapchat, is that detrimental to some areas in terms of a kid's development, since it is so much a part of how they're communicating?
That is a common question that I get from a lot of parents. So, and especially with kids who they're trying to figure out to get the phone or not to, and then when they're old enough for social media. So this is a really tricky question because you really have to think about what's important to your family, and every family is different. So there isn't like one answer that fits for everybody, and you really have to look at your kid. How responsible is your kid? How is their self-control? That type of stuff. But are they missing out? They will feel that they're missing out. That fear of missing out is really real. I don't think that if you hold off as long as you can, I don't think that's particularly bad. I mean, kids are going to be very technologically savvy. They're using technology all the time. But it also, if you want to think about the positive aspects, there are a lot of positive aspects. So I'm not really answering your question maybe what you want, but there are, that connection with friends, that feeling included in the community is really good. But yeah, that's why I tell parents, hold off as long as you can. It gets harder, obviously, as kids get older. And if you're going to let them use it, just be involved as much as you can.
I would say, yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. It is, it's really hard to answer. I get questions like that too a lot. I think you have to ask yourself, what are your fears about your child having these type of accounts, and what are you afraid of? And really have that conversation with your child, and especially, absolutely hold off as much as you can. But set the rules too. If they're going to have that account, because it does include them with their friends, and everybody wants to be the same at that age, then you're going to look at the account and you can monitor it. So, and especially in the beginning when they're young and they just want it so badly that yes, okay, that's fine. So that's something to think about.
I think in high school, there's this delicate balance between giving them enough privacy like we had, but having access. Do you have any suggestions? Like, you know, like they're not going to necessarily friend you on Facebook, and they're not necessarily going to give you their passwords. And like, you want to check up on them, but at the same time, maybe we shouldn't because our parents didn't. And you know, so do you have any suggestions about how to strike that balance? Which I think in high school in particular,
Yeah.
I mean, the younger kids is one thing, but when they get to high school and they're trying to learn their way before they go to college, like, you know.
Right. I mean, so that's, yeah, so just when I think about people asking about parental controls and such, it's like you obviously want your kids to develop that self-control, but we found that it's necessary to be checking in. And, you know, so we say that you ask them for their passwords. I would require passwords. If you're paying for a phone, it should never be, it's a privilege. It should just never be a right that they feel that they have. And that's just the rule. And if they can't follow that rule, then they don't have a phone or an iPad. And so it's very tricky, especially with older kids who are like, I've been doing this for 2 years now, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, you know, Snapchat, Discover, I don't know. You know, certain things didn't exist 2 years ago, you weren't aware of them. I'm just explaining it in that way, so.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a fine line. Once again, you have to know your child. If you feel like your child isn't always really responsible and it can be impulsive, then, you know, insist on looking. And you're right, you paid the phone bill, right? You paid, yeah, it's your phone. Remember that, it's your phone. It's a privilege. You know, a lot of kids forget that. Everybody has a phone. You know, this is mine. No. So you have the right to check. And I think also having that discussion, you know, really be transparent. As you said earlier, be transparent and express your concerns and what you're concerned about. You know, you heard some chatter about some other kids on it. Talk to your child about that. Say, you know, I'm really concerned about that. I want to make sure that this isn't happening. So this is all, you know, they may come back with some answers as, you know, you may get a little furious, but that's okay. That's okay. We're their parents and we have to keep them safe.
And talk about, I hate to use the word addiction, because it really about only 7% of the American society is truly addicted to their phones, but 50% of kids feel that they're addicted to their phones, so that obsessive compulsive behavior. And maybe if that's a concern, talk to your child about that, and that you're trying to help them set limits. And that's, as you mentioned, you know, through the early 20s, you know, it's all related to what's happening in the brain. It's very hard to control oneself, and adults have a really hard time.
So what's the difference between watching or looking at your phone 24/7 and the real addiction?
I think
when
they're
it's
all addicted. Okay, so yeah, that's why I say that word is very commonly used, and many parents do feel addicted. It is when it's really detrimental to your life. Okay. So if the kid's not getting to school, if they're up all night, if they're not eating, it's when it's really, really influencing your life. But yes, I do think lighter to that definition of addiction that people are addicted to. Yeah.
You know, you brought up a really good point. You know, one of the things that, unfortunately, one of the negative things about a lot of the screens is that kids aren't daydreaming. People aren't really daydreaming. Like we used to remember driving in a car when we were kids, we were looking out the window, right? Thinking about different things, you know, problem solving, all of these different strategies that we need, right, to be successful adults. There's no downtime for the brain for a lot of these kids because it's constant. Where, you know, shutting down the phones, shutting down the screens for some time really allows the brain to be able to do that. So just think about that.
You could be very specific about that. Like you were saying, be specific.
Yeah.
It could be like in the
Yeah.
car for under a 30 or 45-minute ride, no screens.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
when we're going for
Yep.
a walk as a family, leave the devices behind.
Absolutely.
Or device-free dinner. So Common Sense is promoting this whole campaign right now. PSA is have a device-free dinner, which many parents maybe might be like, I already have a device-free dinner, but really think about it, sign an agreement, have your box, the devices are clear, just so they're protected times and areas to allow for that conversation, which is so important. We're just sitting there quietly. Like I'm very strict with my kids now, no phones in the car, and it was really tough the first couple of times because that's when they got to use their games, and then like now I see them staring out the window and they're happy. Like, and that's when I used to do my daydreams. Yeah.
I have a teenager, a 17-year-old, who will spend 12 hours a day playing computer games with his friends. But he's a straight-A student, so it's, he's living life normally. I try to send him articles all the time, explaining to him why it's bad to be constantly on screen. And he doesn't understand it. He's saying there's no problem with being on the screen all the time. So I'm just wondering, is there some good articles or something to send them to make them aware of that? This is a problem.
I don't know if he's going to read it. I think that you will?
Yes, you will.
Okay, okay.
Maybe also.
Yeah.
I've tried.
Sometimes I say, when I get parents on the phone, when they're calling about maybe sending their kids to me, one of the things that I always laugh about is that, and I speak to a lot of moms, and they'll say to me, I tell him all the time to shut that screen off, do your homework. This is going to affect you when you go to college. And they just don't listen to me. I say, you know why? Because your mom. Your mom. I could come into your house and I could say that, and they might listen because you know what? I'm not mom. That emotional piece is not there. So maybe having somebody else talk to your child, like another adult that you're pretty close with, to have that conversation.
I'm going to interject one thing just to that note right now. The Greenwich Public Schools, our very own Student Activities Office, and the Greenwich Alliance is going to be screening a film called Screenagers on February 7th. It speaks to a lot of issues that are relative to younger children and decision-making process that you would have as a parent. So if you have younger children, that would be good. But it was recently screened at one of the local private schools, and you may have noticed an article in the Greenwich Time that students saw it, and there were very interesting and positive reactions. So don't hesitate to bring your students, high school and younger, to the showing on the 7th as well. It's a very nice tandem event to what we're doing today.
Where is the event?
I'm sorry, I didn't mention, it's at the high school in the Performing Arts Center.
And what was the date? At night.
February 7th at 7 p.m. and I'm not sure what day that is, but it is February 7th.
It's a Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, did you have a question?
I don't even know if the question or a comment, but I was really interested by your stat that for the 9 hours a day that adults are spending on, only an hour of that is work. And I've never had a job where I haven't had to be on a screen from anywhere from 4 to 10 hours a day, just doing work. And I see that now with our kids. My kids are younger. They're I teach here, so I haven't kids here yet. But they're 7th grade and fourth grade. And my 7th grader has 3 hours of homework a night on his Chromebook. And I know it's only going to get worse when he gets here. He spends 4 to 5 hours a day at Central Middle School on his Chromebook. And so before he had a Chromebook, we had no screen time during the week. Now he's got 8 hours a day just for school, let alone, wanting to play the games, wanting to watch the videos, whatever. And he doesn't have a phone yet. So I'm finding it very hard to balance the requirements of the screen time for job and school with all the pleasure of screen time. Or communicating with friends screen time.
Yeah, yes, and I think Greenwich has a particular focus on a very young age using digital devices for learning. And I think
that we give our preschoolers,
which can be very positive.
Preschools, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That is quite young. And there are benefits to educational programs, but I think it's important also for schools, which is why I work with educators. I don't work with educators directly. My colleague does, who's just really trying to focus on what's beneficial. And again, having that balance. And a lot of parents who do have their kids in schools like that will just have no entertainment screen time during the week at all, and the weekend, and just be really, really strict about that. Maybe you can allow listening to music or watching a TV program, but not playing a game or
But you can't tell if your child is on, they may not be on the Chromebook, they may use their own computer. You don't know, you think you're doing homework, but you have no control if you're doing anything else.
So that's why, there is in our parenting concerns section that summarizes parental controls, and I know when kids are older, they can work around these things. Kids are very, very technologically savvy, but there are programs that help, even that kids will accept. called timeout. There's a variety. We don't ever recommend just one because none of them are perfect and they're all evolving all the time. Do you understand?
It sounds really simplistic, like a question, but is all this rigidity and rules because of the known and unknown effects on the brain? Because I mean, I just remember growing up in a household where we weren't allowed to watch TV during the week. Like it was forbidden, and then when my parents went out, my brother and I would sneak and watch TV. So I mean, it sort of backfired in so many ways. So I'm just wondering, are these rules and this, I don't know, setting parameters because of the effects that we don't know with all on the brain and dopamine? I guess I'm just trying to figure all this out.
Well, I think that can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So that's a really good question. I think that the research is still developing. There's, every day it seems like stats are changing, and we just have to be aware of what's coming out. I think that because we're talking about an age group that can have a hard time with impulsivity, and this is really exciting. It's constantly changing. It's never really just the same. There's something new all the time. So it feeds into that part of the executive function, that part of the brain that just thrives for that. So if kids have a hard time with impulsivity and stopping, then it's hard. It's hard for them to.
And if you have someone who doesn't have issues with that, who manages things, then
God bless.
Then, yeah, God bless them. I mean, that's great. And then, like I said before, know your child. If you know your child, and everybody is different. Everybody, I'm a big believer in not a one size fits all.
Thank you. Just a quick thing. I have a daughter, and she's, pretty much she's a very good girl. She's responsible, she's practical. But I sometimes think it's my problem. And I've tried to tell myself, you know what, genie's out of the bottle. Cat's out of the bag, you cannot put it back in. Because we grew up a certain way, and now they're growing up with this constant stream of everything. Sometimes I think it's how we look at it. And so how do you feel about do you feel like exactly like you do, like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful? Because I feel like almost like it comes between you and your child. They'd rather look at their screen than have a fabulous conversation about, I don't know, something that happened during the day that maybe mom and dad think is great, but she's kind of like rolling her eyes. Oh my God. So, which we did with our parents.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So it's the cat out of the bag, and it's my problem.
I say we still need a balance. I think if it bothers you, that is important to you and your family. And that's why I tried to mention that there is a lot of research that parents feel guilty, no matter what they do. But I do think you need a balance. I think kids really need that face-to-face conversation. That needs to be forced. The screen is so tempting, and they will choose that almost every time over a face-to-face conversation. And I think cross-generational benefits, or there's so many benefits to and then to having that interaction and limiting screens. But I think a balance is really good to focus on. Thank you.
We all set?
Thank you.
And we will also be providing handout information on the website, on our PTA section of the website, under the page called Parent Resources, is where we will be posting the video, which should be ready early next week. This afternoon, we'll be posting links to handouts that our speakers have provided us. So please tell friends who weren't able to join us this morning that we'll be offering that. Thank you all for being wonderfully engaged parents and PTA participants, and thank you again both for helping us today.